Right. Okay, let's start the discussion of the first term test of grade 12 Royal College paper, right? Okay. So in the first question, first let's discuss the MCQ part. If velocity, time, force are taken as v, t, and f respectively, what can be the physical quantity obtained by multiplying v, f, v, t? Right. So first, now just we have to do is just just substitute the relevant units for this physical quantities, right? Then force unit the velocity mean ms minus 1, and here t mean time. So then we can able to derive that these two are cancelled, then it is minus 2, right? So then you can able to figure out that this unit is relevant to the work, or it can be considered as energy, right? But then the answer should be the fourth one. Right. In the second question, if the dimensions of the moment of force are mx, ly, t, z, the values of x, y, z can be, right? So moment of force mean moment of force is obtained by multiplying force with the distance, right? So then if I substitute the dimensions of force, it should be mlt minus 2 into d mean L, then it should be ml squared t minus 2. So then the relevant value should be the represented by the fourth one, isn't it? So the answer should be the fifth one, right? In the third question, choose the answer that gives the vector as the result from the pair below, right? Uh, you can able to figure out that force into velocity, guys. The product of force and velocity represent power, right? You might have learned about that, or in the future you will learn regarding the relationship between the power and the FV, right? So this represents the power. So power is not a vector quantity. And the third one is represent, in the second one, it is represent power into time, right? So you know that power equal to energy over time. No? So if the product of power and T represent the energy, or it can be considered as the work also. But energy is a scalar quantity. Fourth one, force into perpendicular distance, right? So as I mentioned earlier, force into perpendicular distance represent the moment of force. Moment of force, right? And keep in mind that this is a vector quantity, right? So that this should be the right answer. So the answer should be the third one. The force into displacement represent the work. It's not a vector quantity, and the force over area in the fifth answer represent the pressure, and pressure is also not is considered as the vector, right? So the answer should be the third one. In the fourth question, the diameter of a wire with a correct diameter of 1.25 millimeter was found to be 1.6 millimeter when measured with the micrometer screw gauge with a zero error, right? So here 1.25 millimeter is the accurate one. It is the accurate one, right? And 1.6 not millimeter is the obtained value by using this instrument, right? So then now we are asked to first of all before choose the correct diagram, we have to find the value for zero error, right? So now normally the correct value is obtained by obtained value plus or minus 0 error no? Right. Now correct is 1.25. This is the 1.6 node. So in order to obtain this value, we have to subtract the 0 error from the obtained value. Right. So then 0 error, let's represent it as 0 error is obtained as 0.35 millimeters, right? Then now keep in mind that if we subtract the 0 error, then it's obviously this 0 error should be a positive 0 error. It should be a positive 0 error, right? So then now we have to select the diagram which is represent the positive 0.35 millimeters, right? So normally, guys, keep in mind that if you consider a micrometer screw gauge, if it is a positive 0 error, if it is a positive 0 error, you can able to observe the more than the half of the zero division of the main scale, right? So in negative 0, if there's a negative 0 error, you can't find the zero division of the main scale, right? So by looking at the diagram, you should have idea to select whether it is a positive or negative. So that's the way that we select whether it's a positive or negative, right? So then the correct answer should be the second one, right? Right. Just refresh your knowledge regarding those stuffs, right? So that's the purpose of discussion of this paper, right? Um, in the fifth question, a certain toy car travels 36 meters in the first 2 seconds and 48 meters in the next 4 seconds. You are asked to find the velocity after 7 seconds, right? So let's draw a simple diagram. Right. Let's assume that. Now the question didn't mention that whether the initial velocity is 0 or not, right? So it's better. Let's assume that the initial velocity as the u and the acceleration of this object as a, and the distance traveled within the first 2 seconds equal to 36 meters, right? And the 48 meters in the next 4 seconds, right? That's mean when the time is in the 6, that's mean the next 4 seconds, this time gap represent the next 4 seconds. So the distance traveled within this time is 48 meters, right? So the question is asking about the velocity at the time equal to 7 seconds, right? Okay. Now you should have to idea what are the things that what are the equation that you are going to apply, right? So let's assume that these are A, B, C, and D. So guys, now this should be noticed that normally it's better to apply the equation from the same point, right? Then the unknown terms, the number of unknown terms can be minimized, right? So let's apply A from A to B. Now the time, if the time and the displacement is given, so this is the most appropriate equation, right? Then S should be 36. You don't have idea about U, T plus A and 2 squared. Then 36 equal to U plus 2A. Now this is the equation which can be obtained by considering the first data, right? So let's come to now. It's better to apply the equation from A to C rather than applying from B to C, right? Because when we apply from A to C, we can able to now let's assume that if you are going to apply an equation from B to C, then there's another new term, that is the initial velocity at the P, right? So it's better to avoid the considering new terms or the unknown terms, right? If I apply from A to C, the same equation, then the distance should be 48 plus 36. That should be 84 equal. Now here we can able to consider the initial velocity as the u. Time should be 6 plus a and 6 root. And then 84 6u plus 18a. Right. So let's consider this one as the second equation. Right. So now we have to simplify these two equations as a simultaneous equation, isn't it? Right. So the thing is that we need to do is let's to equal the this 2u into 6u. I'm going to multiply the first equation from 3. Then this should be 180 6u plus 6a. Now let's consider this one as the third one. So now I am going to subtract the second equation from the third one. Then 180 minus 84, 108 minus 84 mean 24. 6u and 6u is cancel each other. Then 18a minus 6a mean, sorry, 6a minus 18a mean minus 12a, right? So then we can able to figure out that this a is obtain a negative value. That means this object experience a deceleration, not the acceleration, right? So then we have obtained a value for a. Then let's substitute this value for the first equation. If I substitute the a value for the first equation, then 36 equal to u plus 2 a mean minus 2, right? Then we can able to figure out that u is equal to 20 ms minus 1, right? So now we have an idea about the acceleration and the initial velocity. Now the question is asking about the find the velocity at the 7th second, right? So let's apply from an equation from A to D, right? Let's apply the equation from A to D. What is the relevant equation? That we have idea about initial velocity. The question is asking about the final velocity, and we have idea about the time. So the best equation should be v equal u plus a. Then u is equal to 20. A should be substituted as minus 2 into 4. So into 7. Then the answer should be the 6 ms minus 1. Right? So the answer should be the third one. It's a somewhat, even it is a MCQ, it's a somewhat difficult one, right? Because you should have idea about this simplifying these equations, right? Right. Right. So in the sixth question, which measurement is not measured that can be measured by both instrument micrometer, screw gauge, and vernier caliper? What is the measurement is not measured that can measurement that what is the measurement is not measurement that can be measured by both instruments, right? So the question is, if you go through the answers, now the question is asking, what is the measurement which cannot be obtained using micrometer, screw gauge, and vernier caliper, right? And normally, the depth of a hole cannot be obtained by using a micrometer screw gauge, right? So the answer should be the depth of the small inner wooden block. So the answer should be the third one. It's very easy one. The seventh question, an object of mass m start from rest and move for some time under a constant force. The velocity it acquires. Right. So let's draw a relevant diagram. Now this, according to this, the given data, this m object is moving under a constant force, right? So the f should be a constant value. The question is asking about the velocity at a certain time period, right? So now let's assume that if I apply the f equal ma for this object, then a should be f over m equal to a, right? Now this object is initiate the motion at rest, and let's assume that the velocity at the t can be obtained as v equal u plus at, then v equal, instead of a, I can able to substitute f over m into t, right? So guys, now the question is asking about the velocity after a particular time is proportionate. Now, f is, the question is mentioned that f is a constant one. So then f doesn't change. F is a constant. Then you have figured out that f is, then we can able to mention that v is proportionate to 1 over m, right? The question is asking about the velocity at a certain time now. So then we can able to obtain that v is proportionate to 1 over m. So the answer should be the second one. In the eighth question, two students run at a constant speed in a circular path of constant radius, right? The first students complete 8 rounds while the second completes 6 rounds, right? So in a, you know that, let's consider this track. So track is, it looks like a circular shape. So then if a person or if the student complete a one round, that means the distance traveled by the student is equal to 5r. That is equal to the circumference of the circle, isn't it? Right. So if the students move 8 rounds, that means the distance traveled by the first student is equal to 2πr into 8. And the distance traveled by the second student is equal to 2πr, same radius, into 6, isn't it? So the question is asking about, let's assume that the velocity of the first student as v1 and the velocity of the second student as v2. Now the both students move with a constant speed, right? That means we can able to apply this equation, isn't it? X equal ut. Then x1 equal v1 into t, and s2 should equal to v2 into t, right? So now we all know that time is considering is equal for the both students, right? So if I divide this equation, the t is cancelled. Then v1 over v2 equal to s1 over s2. Now s1 mean guys 2πr into 8 over s2 mean 2πr into 6. So the answer should be the, these are cancelled, then equal to 4/3. Right. So the answer should be the first one. Okay. Right. In the ninth question, it is related with the relative motion. The speed of water in a river is 3. Let's draw a simple diagram. The speed of water in river is 3. Guys, that's mean the velocity of the river relative to the earth is equal to 3. A man who can swim at a speed of 2 in still water, right? Guys, keep in mind that if you're given this kind of word, that is the man who can swim at a speed of 2 in still water, that's mean the velocity of the man relative to the river. That sentence says this meaning, right? Is equal to 2. Expect to swim 10 meters downstream and return to the starting point. Which of the following answer is the most correct answer? Right. Now let's assume that if this man is initiate the motion, now let's assume that river is moving towards this direction, and initially the man expect to swim 10 meters downstream, and is expect to return to the initial position, right? So in the first half of this journey, let's assume whether this is the first half and this is the second half. In the first half, let's find out that what is the distance traveled by what is the time. Now the question is asking about which of the following answer is most correct answer. The question is somehow asking about the total time which is taken by the man to return to the initial position, right? So let's assume that the first movement. So then, now first of all, let's find the velocity of man relative to the earth. So if I substitute the relative motion equation, then this can be written as m plus r e. So this is the application of the relative motion equation, right? So then mr means now the man is swimming towards the downstream or towards the right side, then it should be 2 plus velocity of river relative to the earth is equal to 3. So that's mean at the initial portion of the motion, the man is moving with a 5 velocity relative to the earth, right? So let's assume that the time taken to move the first 10 meters part can be obtained by 10, you mean 5 into t1. Then t1 is equal to seconds, right? Then let's consider the second half of this motion. That's mean the man is returned to the motion initial position. That's mean he has to swim upstream, right? Then in the second instance, let's find out the velocity of man relative to the earth. Now the same equation is applied. Now in the second instance, velocity of man relative to the river should be towards this direction, because now in the second instance he's swimming towards the opposite direction. So this should be 2 plus velocity of river relative to the earth is equal to 3. So that's mean if I arrange the both arrows into towards the same direction, so I'm change the direction of this arrow. So then what happens? The sign is getting converted to the opposite one. All right. So guys, that's here we can able derive an important thing. That's mean now due to the speed of this river, the man, even he tries to swim towards the opposite direction. What happened? The resultant velocity is man is moving towards the other side. හරිද? දැන් ඒකට මේ කියන්නේ අර මේක අර මේ river ගැන වේගය වැඩි නිසා ඌට ඒ වේගෙත් එක්ක පුතේ පීනන්න බෑ. හරිද? ඒ නිසා ඌ මේ පැත්තට එන්න හැදුවට අර ගඟ ස්පීඩ් එක යන නිසා ඌ අන්තිමට ඌ මේක එන්න හැදුවත් ඌ මේ පැත්තට ගහගෙන යනවා. එහෙම සීන් එකක් තියෙන්නේ. Right? So that's mean the person is unable to reach the initial position. This man is unable to reach the initial position. So the answer should be the fifth one. Right? So even though you have to familiar with these applications of this equation and this kind of theoretical things, right? Okay. In the 10th question, below is an acceleration time graph for the motion of an object. If the initial velocity of the object was 5, if the initial velocity of the object is 5, and then the velocity at the end of 6 seconds. Velocity at the end of 6 seconds. Right. So if you go through the graph, so that means the motion. Now this is the acceleration time graph. Acceleration time graph. That means though even the time is increased, the acceleration is a constant, remain at a constant mark. So that means object is moving with a constant acceleration. Let's assume with the answer, the value is as 2, isn't it? Right. So then now we have to obtain the value for b. So let's apply an equation. B equal u plus at. Then u means 5, a means 2, t means 6. Then this is the answer. So the answer should be the fourth one. Right? So these are very easy questions. But you have to be familiar with these. Right. So in the 11th question, an object named A projected vertically upward. It is projected vertically upward with a velocity of 20. And after 4 seconds, another object named B is projected vertically upward from the same position with the same velocity, right? So let's assume that this is the motion of the first object. What happened? It is move upward and then try to return to the initial position. And let's assume this one as the second object and it is also moving upward. Then at a certain time, both these objects collide each other, right? So let's assume that how long after A projected will the two objects collide, right? Let's assume that this is the distance from the initial position for the place where the both these objects collide. Then let's assume now you can able to figure out that the second object is projected after 4 seconds, right? So then if the time traveled by the first object as t, then the time traveled by the second object should be is lesser than 4 seconds, isn't it? So it should be t minus 4. That's the main thing that you need to highlight in this question. The time, first one is the time. The first object has, if the first the time traveled by the first object is t, then the time traveled by the second object should be t minus 4. And the other thing is both these objects obtain the displacement having a same value, right? Then let's apply an equation for first object. Let's call it as A. I'm applying this equation. Then S should be equal to X. equal 20t plus half minus 10 into t squared. Then x equal to 20 minus 5t squared. Let's call this one as the first equation. So if I apply the same equation for the b object, then it should be x equal to 20 time should be t minus 4 plus half minus 10 because we apply the equation in vertically upward direction into t minus 4 square. Right. So if I further simplify this one, then 20 minus 80 minus 5. If I simplify the t minus 4 square, then t squared minus 80 plus 16. This is the answer, right? Then x equal to 20t minus 80. If I multiply the minus 5 from the terms which is inside the bracket, that is 5t squared plus 40t minus 80. So let's call this one as the second object. Now we have derived two equations. Both these equation is given a value for x. So then we can able to equalize both these equation, isn't it? That's the method. Let's equalize the second equation for the first one. Then 20 minus 20t minus 5t squared equal 20t minus, guys, minus 80 minus 80 mean minus 160, 5t squared plus 40t. Then these two can be cancelled and the same thing. Then what happened if I take this minus 160 to the opposite side, then 160 equal 40t, then t equal 4 seconds. Right, guys, that means then if I substitute this value for the first equation, now you obtain that x equal to 0. That's mean, guys, before project the second object, the first object comes to the initial position. හරිද? ඕක තමයි පුතේ මේකෙන් ගන්න පුළුවන් අදහස. පැහැදිලිද? දැන් මේ කතන්දර මේ ගණන් ජාතිය ඔයාලට අදහසක් තියෙනවනේ. හරිද? And you should have an idea about this kind of questions, right? These are some common questions, right? So that's, however, that's mean just before the project the second object, the first object return to the initial position. එහෙමනම් පුතේ මෙතන එහෙනම් මේ answer should be the fifth one. Right? The answer should be the fifth one. Okay. In the 12th question, a bus moves with uniform acceleration on a straight horizontal road. It passes 2 points A and B at a certain distance with a velocity of 30 and 40 respectively. So these are the velocities. The velocity of the bus at exactly half the distance between points A and B. Right. Now the question is asking about the velocity in the midpoint of this journey. Right. Right. Now you should have an idea that the acceleration should be constant, right? And the distance from, let's call it as L, and the opposite, the other part also equal to same distance, right? So if I name this point as A, B, and C. So let's apply the equation. Now the question, now if you go through the question, you should figure out that it's better to relate the initial velocity, final velocity, acceleration, and the distance, right? Therefore, I am applying this equation from A to C. That is V squared equal U squared plus 2AS. Then it should be 40 squared, 30 squared plus 2A. X should be 12, right? So then once 1600 minus 900 means 700 equal 4AL. Right. Let's apply another equation from A to B. The same equation. Then let's assume that the velocity at the midpoint as V naught, then V naught squared equal 30 squared plus 2AX. Right. So guys, in this, by this equation, we can able to obtain that AL equal to 700 over 4. So then we can able to substitute this obtain equation for this expression. Then V naught squared equal to 900 plus 2. Instead of AL, we substitute it as 700 over 4. Then V naught squared equal to 900 plus V naught squared equal to, this is the answer. Then that means V naught equal to 1. Right. This is the answer, and we need to find out the relevant value for this one, right? So all right, so this can be written as 625 into 2, isn't it? So we have idea about the root 625, that is 25 root 2. So this is the answer. That means the answer should be the fourth one. In the 13th question, when a bus traveling at a speed faster than the speed of raining vertically downwards, right? So there's a rain vertically downwards, and bus is moving in a horizontal direction. The bus is traveling at a speed faster than the velocity of train vertically downwards. Let's assume whether this one has a V and this one has U. V is lesser than U. The direction of the rain's velocity as seen by the passenger inside the bus is best represented, right? That means we have to find the velocity of rain relative to the bus, isn't it? So this V can be considered as velocity of rain relative to the earth. This one can be considered as velocity of bus relative to the earth. Now the question is asking about the velocity of rain relative to the bus. Okay. Now, if we substitute the relative motion equation, so VRB can be written as VRE plus VEB. So VRE can be considered as vertical downwards with the EB. Guys, now B is towards the right side direction. So if then EB should be towards this direction, right? So in order to obtain the resultant or the addition of these two vectors, we have to use the triangle theorem, right? So if I draw the first one, and you should be this way. And the question is mentioned that b is lesser, is u is greater than b, no? So then it should be like this one. Right? Then the resultant is represented by the line joining by the initial and the final positions. So guys, the answer should be the fourth one, right? Answer should be the fourth one. Keep in mind that the question is mentioned that in the 13th question, u is lesser than b. So that's why this triangle should be in this. It should be like this one, right? So this side should be greater value than the other one, according to this given data, right? That's the answer. Right. Let's come to the 14th question. An object starts from rest and moves with uniform acceleration if its velocity v at the end of the nth second. The object is initially with a zero velocity and moving with a uniform acceleration if the velocity v at the nth second. Right. So this is the nth second. The distance traveled in the nth second, right? So guys, you should be familiar with this kind of terms, right? Nth seconds mean, now let's take the easier one. The fourth second mean, guys, fourth second mean time from 3 seconds to 4 seconds. 6 seconds mean 6 second mean T5 to T6. 8 second mean that is T7 to T8. So likewise, n second mean T equal n minus 1 to T equal n, right? So if this point represent the Tn, so let's consider this one represent the n minus 1. The question is asking about this distance, right? Right. Okay. Now, this, if you ask to find the distance traveled within a particular seconds, there's a small method that is, let's name this point as A, B, C. So x can be obtained by subtracting the distance from A to C from A to B, isn't it? So let's apply from equation from A to C. AB equal, you should be, now I'm applying is equal ut plus half AB squared, right? Ut squared, then x equal AB, sorry, AC. U should be equal to 0, then half A n squared, right? So if I try to obtain the same equation for AB, then S equal, sorry, it is also this written as AB. AB equal half A n minus 1 square. So if I further simplify this one, this can be written as n square minus 2n plus n. Then half a n squared minus a n plus a over 2. Right. So this is the value for a b. Now x can be obtained by, as we described by this construct, obtaining the difference between AC and AB. Then AC can be written as half A squared minus AB can be written as a in squared minus a in minus a over 2. Right. So you can able to figure out that these two can be cancelled. If I multiply this minus into minus a in, it can be converted to positive a in plus a in. So this is the value for x. A in plus r. Right. This is the value for x. Even though, guys, the a is not mentioned in the question, right? So we have to obtain a value for acceleration, and the initially the question is given that the velocity at the nth second is equal to v, right? So if I apply the equation, this one for the motion, no, if I apply this equation for a to c, v equal u plus at, so v can be considered as v equal u0 a into n. Then a can be derived as b over n, right? So then let's substitute this obtained value into the previous equation. B over n plus r. So that's knowing this kind of answer in the answer script. So let's arrange this equation as, if I consider the common denominator as 2, then this can be arranged as this one. And if I take the 2 into the outer from the bracket and I'm taking n into inside the bracket, 2n over n plus 1 over n. Then this can be written as b over 2, 2 plus 1 over n. So this is the answer. So answer should be, so guys, I made a mistake at this point, right? So this should be not minus, it should be plus, right? This should be positive. Hence this one should be negative, right? Right. So the answer should be the first one for the 14th question. In the 15th question, the displacement time graph of an object is given below. Which of the following statement is correct? So first of all, I'm drawing the given graph. This is displacement time graph. Right. So this is the given equation, given graph, and let's find out to clarify this graph. Guys, according to this graph, this motion should be. Let's assume that if there's a displacement, we have to consider a reference point, and this point is considered as a 0. So then, now initially at the time 0, the displacement having a 5. So that's mean the object is initiate the motion at this point and it's further move towards this direction. And what happened at the 10 equal to that the 10 seconds, he the displacement is getting gradually decreased, and a certain time at this point velocity is equal to 0. So that's mean this object is reversed to the initial position, not the initial position. it is just past the initial position and return to the opposite side, and it is further moving towards the other side. So this is the motion of this object relevant with this graph, right? Okay, let's move on to the question. In time 0 to 10 seconds, object accelerate in time, right? So first of all, now you know that, guys, the gradient of, I represent m as to represent, I'm use m to represent the gradient, right? So gradient of ST graph is relevant with the velocity, right? So now in this graph, this can be obtained that the gradient having a positive one, gradient having a positive and constant. So that's mean if the gradient represents the velocity relevant with this portion of the graph, it should be positive and constant. So guys, if the velocity is constant, the acceleration is 0. So the A statement is incorrect. A is incorrect, right? B, the velocity of the object during the period of 10 to 25 is greater than the velocity of the object during the 0 to 10. Right now, as I mentioned, the gradient can be obtained, the gradient represents the velocity, and gradient can be obtained by delta y over delta x, isn't it? Right. So then, this one. Then the gradient relevant with this graph is represented as delta x mean, sorry, delta y mean 10, delta x mean 10. So velocity should be 1. On this side, from 10 to 25, the velocity can be obtained as delta y over delta x. Delta y can be considered as 15 plus 5 mean 20 over 15. So it should be greater than 1, isn't it? So the B statement is correct. B statement is correct. And see, at the time t10, the direction of the motion of the object is opposite. So the answer should be the B and C. So the answer is both one. Right? Answer is right. In the 16th question, here is the displacement time graph of an object in straight line. Choose the answer that includes the statement that describes the motion of the object, right? Okay. Now, if this is a displacement time graph, the gradient represents the velocity. Now, according to this, if you go through the AB part, if you go through the AB part, you can be able to figure out that the gradient is positively increased. That means velocity positively increased. The gradient of the BC part having a positive, but it's a constant. Right. So then if the gradient of the displacement time graph is constant, then the velocity should be positive and constant. Right. This one. The CD part represents the gradient is negatively decreased. Right. So you should have an idea about this shape of this graph, right? And the velocity also should be negatively decreased. Right. So then, and you can also able to find out that now this is the displacement time graph. That means when at the C point, the object changed the direction of the motion, right? If I draw a relevant velocity time graph for this question, this can be drawn as positively increase. Positively increase, or this can be, right? So let's assume this one, and positively constant. What happened? Velocity negatively decrease. Velocity negatively decrease. Right. The graph should be looks like this. This is the relevant graph, velocity time graph for this displacement time graph, right? So if you go through this answer, you can able to figure out that the fourth one is the correct one. See, an object moving from rest uniformly accelerated, then moves with uniform velocity in the same direction, then decelerate in the opposite direction, right? This should be the correct one, right? Okay. In the 17th question, consider the following statement. When writing units, the units should be written close to the value and to the right side of the value. When writing units, the units should be written close to the value and to the right side of the value. Only 10 kilometers. Right. So when writing units, the unit should be written close to the value and right side to the value. Right. So that's correct. So A is correct, right? In the B, when writing units as product of base units, do not leave a small gap between two units. Do not leave a small gap between two units. Right. So normally let's consider this one. Let's call this an example as 20 ms minus 1. So normally we written this 20 ms minus 1 as follow, right? But in somehow this can be written as this is the correct one, and this is the normally that we familiar with, isn't it? But this one can be written as m s minus. That means you can able to keep the distance or keep a gap in between the base unit, or this one can written as 20 m dot s minus 1. So both these methods are correct, right? So when writing units as a product of base units, do not leave a small gap between the two units. We can able to keep a small distance between the two units, but normally we written without keeping a gap. But even though according to the ruling system, there can be a gap between these two units, right? So the B statement is incorrect. When there is a suffix with a unit, there should be a small gap, right? Guys, keep in mind that when you write in multiple units, like 2 kilometers, right? So there's no any gap between the multiple units and the base unit, right? Now this is something else because this mn is represent the base unit, right? When you write in the unit which is including only the base units or the fundamental units, there can be a distance. But even though when you write in the a unit with the multiple units, there's no any gap between these, right? So the C statement is also incorrect. So the correct one should be the first one. In the 18th question, the vector sum of AB and BC is R. Right. So this is the addition of AB and BC represent the R. Choose the most correct figure from the following geometric presentation. Guys, keep in mind that if there's a two force of 4 and 3, the resultant obviously should be 5. And the triangle should be in a right angle triangle. This is the one thing that you need to know. And if you draw a certain triangle which is relevant with the given data, the addition of the smallest values should be greater than the sum of the small. Let's call the A and B are the smallest value out of these three. This sum should be greater than the C. So these are the some normal things that we need to know, right? So if you go through the answers, so the first case cannot be because the given value is 4 and 3. So if there's a 4 and 3, then it should be a right angle triangle, and the resultant should be the 5. So the 1 and the second can be neglected, right? So when we come to the third answer in the third diagram, it is mentioned that A being as 9, this one is 5. Now this represents the 2. Right. So here the issue is the sum of the least value, that is 5 plus 2, should be greater than 9. If it is a correctly represented, the sum of the smallest value should be greater than the remaining value. But here is the opposite one, because the sum of the two values is lesser than the other one. So this is incorrect, right? And keep in mind that, guys, these are some of the familiar group of forces or group of vectors: 3, 4, 5, and 4, 6, 10. The other one is 5, 12, 13. So these are some of the four. You should have idea, because if there's a this kind of arrangement of the vectors, the triangle should be a right angle one. එහෙනම් පොතේ answer එක මෙතන වෙන්න ඕනේ 4. The answer should be the fourth one. ඇයි පහ වැරදි? පහ වැරදි හේතුව මේකයි. This is the issue with the fifth answer, that is they represent now if they draw the when they draw the triangle, it is initiate from C to A, right, and A to B. So then the resultant should be represented initial to final end. So it should be represented this one. This is the correct way. This is it is wrong one, right? So that's why we neglect the fifth answer, right? Okay, right. So keep in mind those stuffs. Let's move on to the other questions. In the 19th question, consider the following statement made about traveling microscope, choosing the answer which contains only true statement from the above statements, right? So let's go through the statement. When the traveling microscope is focused on an object, the distance between the eyepiece and the objective needs to be changed, right? Guys, in a traveling microscope, let's pay our attention towards the microscope, right? So microscope consists of two lenses, that is eyepiece and objective piece. We kept our eyes towards the lens, which is called eyepiece, and the lens which is close to the object is considered as the objective eyes, objective piece, right? And there's a cross wires in between the eye and the eyepiece and the objective piece, right? So normally this is the thing which is happen in the microscope. The objective piece form an image of the object on the cross wires in the inverted position, right? So this image is formed in the cross wires is formed by the objective piece, right? And when the person is changed, it only needs to arrange the, because this objective, this lens form an image of the object in the cross wires, right? So when the person which is observed through the microscope is getting changed, you have to just only for adjust the eyepiece, not the objective piece, because by using our naked eye, we observe towards the cross wires, right? Not directly object. Keep in mind that. So if I reveal it, the microscope in a traveling microscope consists of two convex lenses. First one is objective piece, the other one is eyepiece. The lens which is situated close to the object is considered as the objective piece, and the lens which is close to the eye is called as the eyepiece. The function of the objective piece is form an image on the crosswire of an object, right? And then the person observe through the eyepiece on the image which is formed at the crosswires, right? එහෙමනම් when the traveling microscope is focused on an object, the distance between eyepiece and the objective needs to be changed. All right, because when the person is changed, we have to change the direction, the distance between the eyepiece and the crosswires, right? So the A statement should be correct. B. Inverted images are observed by traveling microscope. It's true, right? As I mentioned earlier. C. The main scale of a traveling microscope in a school laboratory is divided into 1 millimeter sections. Right? No. Normally, they are divided into 0.1 millimeter divisions. Right? So the C statement is incorrect. So the correct answer should be the fourth one. Right? In the 20th question, let's move on to the 20th question. In the 20th question, the circular scale is divided into hundreds parts in a certain spherometer. The linear scale is divided into 1 millimeter parts, right? So while go through this data, you can be able to obtain that least count of this spherometer should be equal to 1 millimeter divided by 100. So the answer should be the 0.01 millimeter. That's the count of the spherometer. In order to get a measurement, right? So now normally you might familiar with the normal arrangement, which is or normal things, or the way that we obtain the reading by using a spherometer, right? Guys, if there's any issue in the spherometer, there's another method to obtain the readings or obtain the measurement is rotating methods, right? So in the rotating methods, right? In rotating methods, first of all, we keep the speedometer on a horizontal surface, and we we rotate the circular scale in a known values, right? According to this question, the linear in order to get a certain measurement, the circular scale is moved up 3 full turns, right? So that means it is rotated upward in 3 full turns, or 3 turns is rotated inward in the upward direction. That's mean then, right? So that's mean, so in this instance, the screw should be located in somewhere here, right? Then what we do is we keep the object which is need to measure under the screw, and let's assume that this is the object, and then what we do is we just lowered the screw by rotating the circular scale until touch with the object, right? So now the circular scale move upward 3 full turns, and number of turns lowered again is 1.25. 1.25 turns is lowered, right? Choose the answer that contains possible percentage error in the measurement obtained, right? So now percentage error can be obtained by least count over the measurement into 100. This is the way that we obtain the percentage error. Now, first of all, we have to obtain the what is the value of this reading. Let's call it x. Right. Now, guys, keep in mind that if the linear scale is divided to 1 millimeter, mean when you rotate full complete rotation, or when you turn full complete rotation, the screw is moving upward with 1 millimeter. So that's mean if there's a 3 complete turns, that's mean the this screw is move upward with 3 millimeters, right? So when it's lowered 1.25, so that's the issue. Keep in mind that now when we move upward of this screw, in order to move upward, we have to rotate this screw towards this direction, right? In order to move upward, right? So if in order to move downwards, you have to rotate the screw towards the opposite direction, right? So that's mean if there's a 1.25 lower, that's mean it is lowered from 1 millimeter plus the total circular scale is 100, isn't it? So that's mean now this 20, even it is mentioned as 25, keep in mind that it should be obtained by 100 minus 25, that is 75 circular scales lower. තේරුණාද? ඔන්න ඔක මතක තියාගන්න. මෙතන 1.25 lowered කියලා කියන්නේ පුතේ මේක lowered වෙලා තියෙනවා කොච්චරද? මෙන්න මේ ගාන. ඒ කියන්නේ 1.75 millimeters. This can be obtained very easily. That is, now we upward 3 millimeters upward and we lowered 1.25 millimeters downward. So the x mean 3 millimeters minus 1.25 millimeters. That's it. Right. So this is the value of this object, right? So then if we obtain the percentage error of this measurement, it should be 0.01 millimeter over 1.75 into 10 to the 100. So if we substitute this, we can able to obtain that the percentage error as 7 over 4. Because it should be, sorry. It should be 1 over 1.75. If I divide the both numerator and the denominator from 0.25, I can able to obtain that 4 over 7. This is the percentage error of this object. So the answer should be the second one. Guys, now it's better to have this kind of idea in order to obtain the measurement by using a sperometer, right? Okay. Now let's move on to the other questions. Right. In the 21st question, an elevator of tall building start from west. An elevator of tall building start from west and travels vertically downwards for the first part of the journey. In a uniform acceleration f, right? So this part of motion is moved with f acceleration, and the rest with this deceleration of 2f. That means from beyond that, it is moved 2f, that deceleration, this deceleration, right? So I will represent it putting minus 2f, and at the end of the journey it should be come to the rest also. If the height of the building is h, then the total time taken for the journey will be, right? So the height should be h. Now the question is asking total time, right? So let's assume that the distance traveled with acceleration as x1 and the distance traveled with the deceleration as s2. Now x1 plus x2 equal to h, right? And let's also assume that the time taken to reach from the time which is traveled by this elevator in acceleration as t1 and the time which is traveled with deceleration as t2. Let's consider as t1 and t2, right? Now the question is asking about we have to obtain a value for t1 plus t2, right? Now when this object is moving with the acceleration, so that then at this point we should be obtain the maximum velocity, right? Now I'm marking this point as A, B, and C, right? So let's apply an equation from A to B. Right. let's apply an equation from A to B. B equal U plus AP. Same B naught should be equal to 0. A mean F and T1. Guys, T1 mean D over F, right? So if I apply the same equation from B to C, then D should be -0, U should be B naught minus 2F into T2. Then we can able to obtain an answer for T2 as B naught over 2F. Right? So the answer should be the total time B naught over F plus B naught over 2F. But even though in order to obtain the total time, we don't have an idea about the V naught. V naught means, guys, the velocity at this P point, right? And we do have to consider the distance also, right? So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply an equation from A to B. B squared equal U squared plus 2A. Then it should be V naught squared to A mean F, X mean H1. Then if I subject the H1, then we can able to obtain that V squared, B naught squared over 2F equal to H1, right? And let's apply the same equation for the BC motion. Then it can be mentioned as 0 equal V naught squared minus 2 into 2F H2. Then we can able to obtain an answer for H2 as V naught squared over 4F. Right? Even though we know that x1 plus x2 means h. So I'm considering h1 and h2 instead of x1 and x2, right? So don't misunderstand about the values, right? So if I apply for this equation, we have obtained that x1 as v naught squared over 2 plus v naught squared over 4f equal to h. Then if I try to obtain an answer for v naught squared, let's consider the common denominator as f to 4f. Then it should be 2 naught squared plus v naught squared equal to h. Then v naught can be obtained as 3fh over root of 3fh over 3, right? So we have obtained a value for v naught. So let's substitute for this equation. Now, if I consider the common denominator as f naught 2f, so it should be 2v naught plus v naught equal t. Right. So instead of v naught, let's substitute this one. 3 over 2f into root 4fh over 3 equal to t. Right. So in order to obtain a value for t, now I have to simplify this one. So if I make this kind of arrangement, I will take in this 3 over 2f into the inside the root sign. So then we have to consider the square. In order to when you take in this numerical value for the inside the root, you have to consider the square term. So that's mean 4fh over 3 should be considered as 9. 2 should be considered as 4 and h squared equal to 2. Right. So then if I make the simplification further, then 3h over f root 3h over f should be equal to t. Right. So the answer should be the 3h over f. That's mean the third one is the answer. This is something a little bit difficult one. Correct. Right. However, but these things should be familiar for you, right? Okay. Now let's come to the 22nd question. A vehicle is moving horizontally with a velocity of 10. A child in a car throws a ball vertically upwards with a velocity of 20. The false statement is right. Then I think this kind of case scenario should be familiar for you, right? Now this object is moving with the 10 ms minus 1, right? And the child in a car throws a ball vertically upward. It is move vertically upward direction with a velocity of 20. Right. Guys, this motion should be this kind of pathway, right? So however, this object returned to the trolley without any deviation or without any disturbance, right? So the question is asking about the false statement. The balls move up and falls back into the vehicle, right? So that should be correct, right? The balls take 4 seconds to reach the projection level, all right? So now this is the let's consider the initial one. So ball is thrown initially in a vertical direction, but even though now ball experiences two types of velocity. First one is a 20 ms minus 1, and now this ball is inside the moving trolley. That means this velocity also is for the ball. That's why this ball experience this kind of trajectory pathway, right? So let's apply an equation by considering the initial motion. Then now this ball is returned to the initial one, so the vertical displacement is equal to 0. You mean 20 t half a should be substituted as minus 10 and t squared. 0 equal to 20t minus 5t squared. So then the t should be equal to 4 seconds, right? So the second one is also correct. The vehicle and the ball travel same horizontal distance. So that is correct. It is also correct. So that's why the ball returned to the initial positions, right? Even the trolley is moving towards horizontally, the ball is returned to the same position when it's come to the uh, uh, hands of the child, right? The third one is also correct. By the time the ball reaches the projection level, the vehicle is behind. That is correct. Because if the third one is correct, fourth one should be incorrect, isn't it? So the answer should be the fourth one. Because question is asking about the false one. Right. In the 23rd question, the particle project with the inclination of angle beta to the horizontal with velocity u from the lowest point of the inclined plane. Right. I think you have go through this question. Now here, this object moving this kind of pathway. Right? So guys, if we apply an equation vertical to the horizontal, vertical to the inclined surface. So then the vertical to the inclined surface, the displacement to the vertical to the inclined surface should be equal to 0, right? And the horizontal distance horizontal displacement along the inclined surface should be r. Right? So normally we are applying equation vertically as well as a horizontally. But in this instance, if the ball is projected in this kind of a plane, we have to consider the direction, the main two direction as perpendicular to the inclined surface and the along the inclined surface. So then, if you want to do so, you have to now normally gravitational field is gravitation acceleration is set vertically downwards. But if you consider this motion, you have to consider the gravitational acceleration according to the along the parallel to the inclined surface as well as the perpendicular to the inclined surface, right? So if this angle is alpha, you know that this one should be also alpha, right? So if I resolve this gravitational acceleration towards the perpendicular direction to the vertical, perpendicular direction to the inclined surface, it can be considered as g cos alpha. And along the inclined surface can be written as g sin alpha. So these are the values for gravitational acceleration if you obtain or if you ascertain this kind of the motion occurred towards these directions, right? So the answer should be the g cos alpha and g sin alpha, that is the fourth one. Right. In the 24th question, a cyclist parked near an electric signal tower travels at an acceleration of 5 in 20 seconds and acquires a uniform velocity after turning on the signal bulb to proceed. Hurry. So if I draw the relevant diagram for the motorcyclist, right. So, if I draw the velocity time graph, it should be like this. First, initially there's an acceleration, and then after acquires a particular value at the 20 seconds, then the object move in a uniform velocity. A car, C, that has been standing there for 10 seconds moves forward with an acceleration of 5. At some point, the car passed the bicycle. The displacement time graph for the two vehicles, right? That's mean now the car is moving with the acceleration, right? So and there's a the car is both car and bicycle initiate the motion at the same point, but even though there's a little bit delay for the car, so that's mean in order to obtain the draw the correct displacement time graph. Now this means the velocity is positively increased, right? Velocity is positively increased. That means if the velocity is positively increased, the gradient should be in this displacement time graph also positively increased. Right. So this is the way that we draw the positively increased displacement graph, right? So then velocity is constant. So then gradient should be constant. Should be like this, right? So if the car is moving in as acceleration throughout the motion, it should be drawn like right? So the graph should be like so similar to this one. So the second one or the fourth one is can be accepted. Second one or the fourth one. I think the fourth one is the most accurate one, but second one is also can be accepted, right? Right. So let's move on to the structured essay paper. In the first question, structured essay questions. Meter rule is a basic measuring instrument used in school laboratory. In a meter rule, what is the least count? Guys, least count mean now if you go through the meter rule that you have, the least count of the meter rule is can be considered as 1 millimeter, right? So this is the least count that can be measured using a meter rule, right? Because it is calibrated as 1 millimeters divisions, right? Second, B part, what is the minimum measurement which can be taken as a laboratory measurement, right? Now using meter rule, 10 centimeter is the max, is the minimum value that can be taken without with the accuracy, right? If you're going to obtain a least value than the 10 centimeters by using a meter rule, then the percentage error is getting increased and the measurement or the reading can be considered as a false one, right? C. If a student take a measurement as 20 centimeters from this meter rule, what is the percentage error of the measurement, right? You know that how to obtain the percentage error. Percentage error mean least count of or the measurement over measurement into 100, right? So now this measurement, this reading is obtained by using a meter rule. That means least count should be 1 millimeter. Obtained value is 20 centimeters. So we definitely have to convert this 20 centimeters into millimeters, right? So then this should be 200 millimeters into 0. The answer should be the 0.05. Right? B. Mention another error which can be occur when taking a measurement from meter rule. So it can be written as parallax error. Parallax error. That's mean normally now parallax error mean just assume that this is the correct reading. This is the correct one, right? So in order to obtain the correct reading, the eyes should be kept perpendicular to the place, right? If you keep the eye in a just inclined to the position without perpendicular, then it is obtained a false reading. Okay, guys, this is called as the parallax error. So the parallax error can be happen in a when obtaining readings using a meter rule, right? To avoid or to minimize the parallax error, we use a set square. හරිද? set square එකක් use කරන්න පුළුවන් to minimize the parallax error. Right. Okay. So in the second part of this question, assume you have determined the volume of air inside a piece of cardboard which is made of certain types of very thin paper. So let's assume that this is the cardboard. Now you have observed that there are some air trapped inside this cardboard now. So now we are going to obtain the or we are going to measure the air, the volume of the air which is trapped inside this cardboard, right? When taking readings of length, breadth, and thickness of the piece of cardboard, positions of scales are shown in the shown below. Write down the name of the relevant measurement and its reading. Right. So in the guys, the reading which is mentioned in the first two diagrams, it is difficult to obtain the reading, right? But I think one is mentioned 80 millimeters. That's mean the breadth of this A represent the breadth, and B is having a 12 centimeters like value, right? So this should be the length. C. So C measurement is obtained by using a micrometer screw gauge. So that's mean obviously that should be the thickness of the cardboard, right? That should be the thickness of the cardboard. And in order to obtain the reading, now the first in the C column, the first diagram of the micrometer screw gauge represent the zero error when anvil and the spindle touch, right? That's mean object having a positive error with a value of, I think, normally this is the least count of the micrometer screw gauge. So the zero error can be multiplied by least count from the coincide value. That's mean 0.03 millimeter. Keep in mind that it is a positive zero error, and the reading should be guys, there are some lack of the data here, right? So because it should be given what is the value for pitch and the number of division in the circular scale. But even though, let's assume that the pitch of this micrometer screw gauge has 0.5, then the reading can be obtained by 2 millimeters. So let's assume that if the pitch is is 0.5 millimeters, then guys, this should be 0.5. Then this should be the 1 millimeter. This one 1.5, and this one should be the 2 millimeters, right? So in order to obtain the reading of this, which is express this position, the 2 millimeter should be addition. Please count into coincide value, that is 3. So the answer should be the 2.03 millimeters. So this is the obtained value, right? There's a positive zero error of this instrument. So the accurate value should be 0.03 millimeters minus positive error. Then the value should be the 2 millimeters, right? Okay. Guys, there's a little issue in when taking the reading because there's not any enough data is given, right? So there's an issue in the second part, right? So let's move on to the B part of the second sub part. What is the reason for choosing the above instrument to measure the thickness, right? That's mean to we use micrometer screw gauge to measure the thickness, no? That is otherwise, now you know that this uh, the obtained value is 2.03 millimeters, right? And to obtain this kind of measurement, the least count should be of the using measuring instrument should be 0.01 millimeters, right? In order this kind of least count, we have to use the micrometer screw gauge, right? So that's the reason. Or otherwise, mm, unless we use the vernier caliper or meter ruler, the accuracy of the measurement is getting reduced, or the lack of the accuracy of the measurement. So the question is asking what is the reason for choosing the above instrument to measure the thickness to increase the accuracy of the reading. To increase the accuracy of the reading, right? See, assume you have been supplied two identical glass sides. If this thing cardboard can be easily torn, suggest a suitable measurement method to measure the thickness of the piece of cardboard using the two glass sides. Right. So it's better to keep the this cardboard between the two glass sides. By trapping the cardboard paper in between the glass slides, we can able to obtain the thickness of the cardboard paper, right? So that's the method. Keeping the cardboard paper in between the glass slides, right? In the D part, what is the additional data and additional measurement needed to calculate the volume of air in the piece of cardboard, right? Guys, now just concern this part very carefully, right? Now, let's assume that right. So now first of all, I will explain you the what is the method which is used in this procedure, right? So now let's assume that let's take an in a simple way. Let's assume that this is the cuboid which is filled completely with the metal, right? This cuboid is completely filled a metallic substance, and let's assume that the distance as the A, width as the B, and height as the H. So then, what is the volume of this cuboid? Can be obtained by A, B, H, isn't it? Right. Let's assume that uh, there's some air-filled spaces inside um, this box, right? So then now so that's mean so this is the way that we obtain the volume of solid, right? So even though now let's consider this box as a hollowed one, that means it is including some air bubbles inside this one, right? So can we consider this the volume of solid as ABH. Can we use this equation or this expression to obtain the volume of this substance? No, because even this cannot be considered, right? This is not correct because there's no any this much of volume inside because there's a air trapment, right? So due to the trapping of the air inside the cuboid, there's the volume of the substance or volume of the metallic part is lesser than this amount. තේරුණාද? දැන් මේකේ පුතේ ඇතුලේ මොකක් හරි ගෑස් එකක් හරි මොකක් හරි එයාස් ෆිල් වෙලා තියෙනවා නම් if there's a air filled inside this cuboid, the volume of the solid particles or the volume of the metallic parts can be obtained by using this equation because the metallic part is less than this amount, right? So then to measure the volume of solid substance, to measure the volume of the solid substance in this kind of instance, we used another method, that is, you have already know that there's a equation between there's a relationship between the density, mass and the volume, right? So the density can be written as mass over volume, right? And guys, in this kind of instance, we can able to use this equation in order to obtain the volume, right? So if then the volume can be expressed as mass over density, right? Keep in mind that if you obtain the mass of this object, the mass of the air can be neglected, isn't it? So then if you measure the weight of this box, you can able to obtain the mass of the solid substance. පුතේ මේකේ දැන් මේකේ මේ යා ෆිල් වෙලා තියෙන box එක ගිහිල්ලා මොකක් හරි balance එකක් උඩ අපි ගත්තොත් triple beam balance එක හරි නැත්නම් electronic balance එක තිබ්බට පස්සේ we can able to get the mass now. So the mass directly represent the mass of the solid substance inside this box, right? Because the mass of the air is negligible. Then if you have idea about the density, අපිට පුළුවන් එහෙනම් අපි તો mass එක m කියලා, density අපි ගමු d කියලා. Then to measure the volume of the solid substance in this instance, we can able to use this equation, right? Right. Then අහගන්න මේක. The volume of solid substance plus volume of air. The addition of these two express the pH. Because we can't able to then අපි මේක නිකන් උඩින් බැලුවට උඩින් measurement volume එක measure කරලා පස්සේ පුතේ ඉන්නේ මේ දෙකේම එකතුව. තේරුණාද? So this is the theory behind these questions, right? If there's a completely solidified object, then we can able to obtain the volume by using this equation. But even though there's a entrapment of the air particles inside this box, we can't able to obtain directly about the volume of the solid, because due to this air particles inside this box, it is reduced the solid particles, because then solid තියෙන තැන් වලනේ පුතේ air කියලා තියෙන්නේ. air particles air ඇතුලේ හිර වෙලා තියෙන්නේ solid තියෙන තැන් වලට. ඒ නිසා එතන solid එක අඩු වෙනවා. ඔන්න ඔබ තමයි පුතේ මෙතන theory එක. හරිද? ඔබට මතක තියාගන්න. එහෙමනම් so let's come to the questions. Now let's come to the questions. Now this cardboard box is filled with air, right? So this means in order to obtain the question is we have to obtain the volume of the air which is entrapped inside this cardboard, right? So then in order to obtain this value, we should have an idea about the total volume of this cardboard plus the volume of the solid substance or volume of the cardboard solids or cardboard substance inside this cardboard, right? Okay, so that's why now we can able to obtain these answers, right? Because initially they mentioned the length, width, and the thickness of the cardboard. So that means we already have obtained this value. So in order to obtain the AR, we have idea about the volumes of solid substance, right? So in order to obtain the volume of solid substance, we use this equation, right? එහෙමනම්, what is the additional data and the additional measurement needed to calculate the volume? So the additional data should be the density and the additional measurement should be the mass, right? So the data should be, because it is the density is given, because there's no density is given and the measurement is mass. Write down the suitable laboratory instrument needed to obtain the above extra measurement, right? So to measure the cardboard, the measure the mass of this cardboard, we use triple beam balance or electric balance. Triple beam balance or electronic balance. These are the instrument which is used to measure a small mass, right? So in the fourth question, right? So this calculation is based on this explanation, right? If the volume of the air in the piece of cardboard is V, the length of piece cardboard X, breadth is Y, thickness of the cardboard is Z, right? So that's mean, and the additional data, the data mean the density is P, and the additional measurement, that's the mass, is Q. Write down an expression for the volume of piece of cardboard using the above data, right? That's mean we have to use this equation, right? Volume of cardboard. So this equation is F1. Volume of cardboard plus volume of the alright. Okay. Now this expression can be equal this one xy is it, right? So the volume of the cardboard can be obtained by only the cardboard can be obtained by using the equations, right? That is Q over T plus V equal x y z, right? Right. I think this is they are asking about the write down an expression for the volume of air, right? I think they are asking about the expression for V. Then it should be x y z minus Q over V, right? G, if there's no air inside the piece of cardboard, write down an expression for rho using the above data, right? Then unless there's a air which is filled inside this cardboard, that's mean the volume ABH is directly represent the volume of cardboard, right? Then you know that density is equal to mass over volume. So then we can able to obtain an answer directly by using this equation. Right. So in the second question of the structured essay paper, they are asking about the parallelogram theorem, right? The figure shows a parallelogram law apparatus used to find the mass of unknown weight. The flexible string used in the apparatus are made with a certain metal and has a diameter of 0.5 millimeter inside the 0.5 millimeter. Inside the string, there's a capillary hole. Assuming the strings are light and inextensible, right? Mention the name of the relevant theory, right? So this theory is based on the parallelogram theorem, right? So the theory which is based on this question is parallelogram theorem. Second one, name ABC parts of the figure, right? So A mean the supported board, A mean supported board. B mean pulleys. C mean A4 sheet, right? Write down a procedure that should be done to honor. Then there's another one. They are in this second question A part. The second question A part. They are asking about is the importance of B, right? So you should remember that the pulley which is used in this experiment should be frictionless. They should be frictionless, right? In the B part, write down the procedure that should be done to check the above mentioned quality, right? Guys, keep in mind that to obtain whether there's a friction in the pulleys or not, but what we do is we just pull down the uh, weight and release, right? If the weight return to the initial position, then we can able to assume that there's a frictionless in the pulleys, right? Okay. In the third subtopic, in the third question, write down an extra instrument needed to obtain the projection of the string on C, right? To obtain the projection of the strings, we can able to use a set square or a mirror, right? It's better to write that set square or mirror. Both can be accepted, but I think this one is better, right? Okay. In the C part, so in the fourth Roman number, C is taken out on the apparatus and join the points and draw the parallelogram according to the suitable scale. If the diagonal of the parallelogram is not vertical, right? So if the diagonal which is drawn in this after completing the parallelogram, unless it is in a vertically, that's mean there are some particular reasons for not having a vertical diagonal, that is, the pulleys can be friction in the pulleys, right? The other one is springs have a mass, and the weights are not in same plane. So these are the reason for not having a vertical diagonal. Right. So in the B part of the Roman number 4, the mass of the each scale pan is 5 gram, M1 is 25 gram, and the M2 is 35, and theta is 90. The relevant parallelogram drawn accordingly is given below. Calculate the length of AO, OP, and OC. If the scale is used, 10 gram represented by 1 centimeter. What is the mass of the middle weight? Right. So normally, now the mass of the scale pan. Now normally we use a pan without a mass, but here they have mentioned that this pan is also having a mass. So when in order to obtain the this M1G, this is M2G, and this middle weight is equal to WG. Right. So in order to obtain the weight of the total pan, which is including mass, the total should be 30 gram. In this instance, it should be 40 gram, and the weight of the other one should be also calculated 5 grams, right? No, there's no pan in the middle weight, so it is only having a WG. So guys, keep in mind that if there's a mass for the pan which is kept this object, you also have to consider it one. Then just draw the now if the 30 gram, if the 10 gram represent 1 centimeter, so this OA line should having a distance with 3 centimeters. OB should be drawn with a distance of 4 centimeters, right? So if we complete the parallelogram, the diagonal should be directed in this way. So guys, if you measure the weight, if you measure the length of this diagonal, it should be equal to 5 centimeters. So if the 5 centimeters represent 5 centimeter is represent 50 grams. So the weight of the mass of the middle weight should be equal to 50 grams. Simple D. What is the reason for using light inextensible string? Because otherwise we have to consider the mass of the string too, right? ඔක තමයි කතන්දරේ. It is needed to find the external and internal diameter of the two strings. What are the measuring instruments needed to take the above readings, right? So the external diameter can be obtained by using micrometer screw gauge. Internal, in order to obtain internal diameter, so these are capillary tubes, so they definitely should be traveling microscope, right? To obtain the external diameter, you also can able to use the traveling microscope, but in order to obtain the internal diameter, it should be the traveling microscope. In the B part, what are the principles used in the above measuring instrument? In the micrometer screw gauge, we use screw principle, and in the traveling microscope, we use vernier principle. in the C part, before taking a reading from measuring instrument, a certain things you should be checked. What is the thing that we need to check? Whether having a zero error of this instrument, right? Second one, plus one should be zero error. Second one, what is the reason for not checking the certain things in Q? Because normally we don't consider the zero error in traveling microscope. The reason is in traveling microscope we consider a difference of reading, right? In traveling microscope we consider difference of reading. So that's why we don't need to worry about the zero error, right?